So 3 years ago, I got my hands on the Orangewood Oliver and Oliver Jr mahogany to review. And these guitars remain some of their best-selling models due to their affordable price tag, which makes them attractive to beginners. So after 3 years with these guitars, the question is, how well do entry-level guitars like these age with time? Now, the Olivers here are probably the cheapest or among the cheapest guitars in my collection at $225 each. But in a way, I like them for that reason. You know, I can take them out traveling with me, I can take them around the house, and I don't have to be so precious about them. If they get knocked around, it's not the end of the world. So in this video, I'm going to be doing a follow-up demo on these two guitars, how they sound 3 years on, and I'll also share a couple of basic tips to ensure your guitars last for years to come. Now, if you want to find out more about Orangewood, click the link in the description below. So let's start off by first hearing how both of these guitars sound side by side. So what were your thoughts on how these guitars sounded? For me, the Oliver obviously sounds much fuller and less boxy than the Oliver Jr, but that's absolutely to be expected given how much smaller the Oliver Jr is overall. Despite the differences in sound, both guitars still felt really comfortable in the hand, and I haven't had to personally adjust anything with the truss rod or setup since getting these guitars. Now, I'll mention again that these guitars are both $225 at the time of recording with a soft case included. So for a beginner's guitar that gets a full setup before being shipped, I think that's a pretty good option for those starting out on an instrument, or even for people who are looking for a second knockaround guitar. So let's do a quick recap on the specs. Now, the Oliver and the Oliver Jr both feature a solid mahogany top and layered mahogany back and sides with a satin finish. The Oliver is a grand concert body shape, so it's on the smaller end of the full-size body guitar spectrum, but still big enough to, get a decent strum sound, but definitely more suited towards fingerpicking and an intimate focused sound. The Oliver Jr, on the other hand, is what they call a mini grand concert size, It's a travel guitar size really. And the specs are basically identical to that of a Taylor GS Mini, which is one of the best-selling acoustic guitars around the world at the moment. Now the Oliver has a 25.5-inch scale length full size versus the Junior, which is a 23.5-inch scale length. And with a smaller scale length comes less tension on the strings. Less tension on the strings means they're a lot easier to bend and fret. So although both are wonderful beginner options, I think the Junior is much more forgiving for beginners attempting bar chords or people with smaller hands or for children learning the instrument. Now the downside with a shorter scale length here though is that you have narrower frets, and couple that with the slightly narrower nut width, and that makes the Junior a little bit trickier to play for those with bigger hands or thick fingers. But personally, I didn't really feel too cramped on the fretboard with the Junior. Now, after years with these guitars, I can genuinely say that they've been great and remain fun and easy to play. Now, are they my first choice of a guitar? Of course not. They're a $225 guitar, so of course they're not gonna sound as good as some of my more expensive guitars. Now the tuners on these are on the cheaper side, so I found that tuning stability sometimes can be a little off when you're doing fine adjustments. It can be a little bit fiddly. But as a guitar that I don't have to worry about, these have been really great. So on the couch whilst I'm watching TV, or if I'm at the desk and I need to figure out a song part really quick, I'll just pick one of these up. Going out to a park with friends, and even recently I've been letting my 1.5-year-old daughter play around with the Oliver Jr. Now, even though I'm less worried about these guitars, that's not to say I don't maintain basic care for them. And that's important in ensuring your guitars play well over time. So let's run through a couple of things and a couple of tips that you should always consider with your acoustic guitars. The first thing to keep in mind is humidity levels. Guitars are sensitive to humidity, and an ideal humidity level for a guitar is around 45 to 55%. But if the humidity drops too low, the wood can crack. If it's too high, the wood can warp. So consider purchasing a two-way guitar humidifier if you know that humidity is an issue where you live. I personally haven't had to use them for these two guitars, but for my more expensive guitars, I have some just to be on the safe side. But where I live, the humidity is quite moderate. Now, just as important is temperature. So avoid leaving your guitar in places like the boot of a hot car or near heating sources. Rapid temperature changes can cause wood to crack. Now, the next tip is a simple one, but surprisingly, a lot of people don't do it. Simply wipe down your guitar after each big session to remove oils, sweat, and other residues from your fingers. Ideally, use a soft, lint-free cloth for your guitar. These Music Nomad cloths are my favorite polishing cloths. If you're someone who sweats a lot and you don't clean your guitar, over time your strings and frets are gonna get really gunky and unpleasant to play. So be sure to clean them after every big practice sesh. The next tip is if you're not gonna use your guitar for a long period of time, just store it in its case. This protects it from dust, humidity, and temperature variations and accidental knocks. So a very obvious tip, but be sure to keep it in its case if you're not gonna use it for a long period of time. The final tip is to get your guitar serviced every once in a while, especially if you notice any changes to the playability or the sound. Have your guitar checked by a professional. So this includes checking the neck alignment, the action, intonation, or any other potential structural issues. Now, Orangewood do a full setup on their guitars before they ship it out to the customer, and that will generally last you a while. For instance, I haven't had to do anything to these guitars and they still play well. But just like with cars, guitars need servicing from time to time to ensure they're playing optimally. So take care of your guitar, and I'm sure you can expect it to last for decades to come. Overall, I think many believe that a guitar's price reflects its musical quality, and whilst that's true to an extent, many beginner guitars offer excellent playability and sound these days. The real value in music is the emotion and the dedication behind it and how it's played, not the price of the gear. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys next time on Guitar Zero to Hero. Cheers.